Today on The State of Us, Biden or Trump in 2024? Is that what America needs? Welcome to The State of Us. I'm your host, Justin T. Weller, joined today by the one and only, your friendly redneck liberal, emphasis on friendly, and the senior resident historian here at True Chat, Mr. Lance Jackson, also a current educator of 35 plus years. You know, your intro just gets longer and longer all the time. It's hard to keep up with.
Hello.
There he is.
All right.
Oh.
My paycheck doesn't get any bigger, but my intro gets bigger. There you go. Something's wrong with that, folks.
That's right. Well, no, we keep adding zeros to the paycheck. I've told you.
Right up front.
Yep, that's
right.
Right
up front.
Well, when it starts with a zero, it doesn't matter if you put it at the beginning or end.
Good point.
We can put it wherever you want. We can put it at the start. We can put it at the end.
I didn't think of it that way, but you're exactly right. I'm going to try not to be too officious today, folks, because we've done 3 shows off air, and he's got me all fired up. So if you're not sure, officious means offering unnecessary and unwanted advice or services, especially in a high-handed or overbearing way. So I'm going to try not to be too officious, but I got a lot to say today. So whatever Justin asks, I may answer the question, and I may go off on a tangent just because he's got me fired up today.
Maybe we should let you ask the questions then.
I don't know.
So we're talking about Biden, Trump. I mean, right? President Trump is
sort of. That's the basis of it, right? Because
everybody's 2 favorite people.
who wants to make the bet that it won't be Biden and Trump? I mean, what? First question. You said I get to ask the questions, right?
I said,
what would you give the odds?
He's taking the opportunity there. Notice just like
I don't know if I'm going to be officious. I might as well be officious and just be upfront about it. See, I won't lie to you about being meddlesome and overbearing. I'll just be that way, right? What would you give the odds that in 2024 it is Biden versus Trump? That both of them,
that they both become the nominee
of the Democrats and the Republicans.
Run. I mean, Trump is right, so there's a good.
Well, that's part of the rest of the show. Will Trump go off and start his own third party,
right?
Like Theodore Roosevelt. But what odds would you give Biden representing the Democrats and Trump representing the Republicans in less than 2 years now?
Ooh, probably not very good, honestly. I mean, do I think that they will both try to do that? Yeah.
Okay.
I think it's realistic.
So, but you don't think you don't think it's likely being 51% or higher.
Yeah. I give about a 40%.
You're going to be a weather forecaster today.
40%
it's a 40% chance.
About
okay.
a 40%.
That's for you longtime listeners. That's what weather forecasters do. They tell us it's a 40% chance that it's going to be sunny. And then if it's sunny, it's like, look, I was right. If it's not, I said, well, I told you it was only a 40% chance.
Right.
So Justin,
it wasn't impossible, but
Justin has for years, folks, accused me of being the fence sitter. And here I am. I take the lead. And he's being a fence sitter. He will not say definitely yes or definitely no. He's going to give it a 40% chance.
I think what's going to happen with these candidates is, and you and I have talked about this before, for very different reasons, right? I'm not saying that Biden and Trump are interchangeable, because obviously I'm sure a lot of probably everybody listening would have problems.
2 distinct styles, to be sure.
Yes. Yeah. Two different styles, certainly. I think the issue is that not just the 2020 election, right? But the 2016 election, we haven't had candidates that inspire, like, I want to go vote for this person. Most of the vote, or at least it feels like to me, and I don't know, does anybody else feel like this? Most of the voting, it feels like, the past 2 presidential elections, is who do I like less? You know, so I'm going to vote for the person that I hate the least. And it's like, so I guess what I'm trying to get at there is what I think. I don't think that the Republican Party is going to just bow down to Trump and let him run unopposed. And I don't think the Democratic Party is going to just bow down to Biden and let him run unopposed. So if they both end up running, which Trump is, and Biden says that he's planning to run, but won't say that he is running. And folks, you know, why would you do that? Well, one, because it's not time to announce yet. which is all the reason that you need to know why Trump announced. And then the other thing is that because if he isn't running and he says he's not running, then everybody will just ignore him for the next several years. So he's trying, he's either being a typical Politico or he's being a typical Politico. It's just a question of in which way is he doing that?
What are the odds of Newsom from California representing the Democrats versus DeSantis from Florida representing the Republicans, having two governors, one from California, the Democrat, and DeSantis representing the Republicans from Florida? What do you think the odds are of that being the matchup in 2024?
Oh, worse.
Okay.
Because as you and I have talked about historically, anybody who we say is going to be, who has not previously been a president, who we think is going to be the nominee right now, won't be the nominee. That's like, leading up to 2008. Oh, it'll be Hillary Clinton. It'll be Hillary.
Right.
Freaking Hillary.
Oh, no, we've watched it, right? All the front runners in
right,
2 years out end up not being it. It's somebody that
unless you're the sitting president,
right?
Then you generally, and we don't have a lot of history to go on for presidents that, were a president and then took a break and then came back.
There's one. Right?
Well, that's what I mean. We don't have a lot.
22nd and 24th, right?
We don't have a lot to go on.
Good old Grover Cleveland.
It can be done.
You will be hearing that. I'm sure Donald Trump will be invoking the name of Grover Cleveland often in the next 2 years.
Hey, don't be hating on
All right.
Don't be hating on President Cleveland.
President Grover Cleveland.
That's right, yes.
And look it up and give us the answer, because I'm not going to give it on the air. What political party was Grover Cleveland representing when he was president the 22nd and 24th time?
Ooh.
You can Google it. It's out there. But
are we going to give him the answer at some point? Or we're just
You can give it at the end. I'm not giving it away. I want to see how many people, will actually send us an email at podcast@thestateofus.org and see if.
We haven't heard your.
No, because I'm still asking the questions.
Oh, okay.
So then what do you give?
Got it.
What do you give the odds that Biden will represent the Democrats? Trump will not win the primary and he'll represent the Republicans. It'll be somebody else. You can put anybody.
Right. Yeah, I didn't.
And Trump goes off and starts a third party and splits the Republican vote.
So Biden gets the nomination.
Yep.
Trump does not get the Republican nomination, but does the third party thing.
What do you give the odds to that?
I think it's very foreseeable that he would do something like that. I think that it's one of the questions that we've asked before is he a genius and is just selling stuff that makes him not always sound like a genius? Or is it that he really actually doesn't know this stuff? Because if he really does know this stuff, he would know that there's a lot of states where you can't do that. Like Ohio's one of those, we have sore loser law where basically if you're in the primary, you can't then turn around and run as an independent because the filing deadline will have passed by the time that you would have had to do that. So you're blocked from, and now that's not every state, you know what I mean? So it is theoretically possible that you could do that and win. But I guess the whole point is like with Trump, do I think it's likely that he would do something like that? Sure. Do I think that he could win by doing that?
So
no.
is that a greater possibility than the 40% Trump Biden race?
Yes.
So you think it's a more likely scenario
that he will
Biden
not get the nomination and that he
Trump
will go pout.
Wow.
And
okay. And then my last question for you, your last prediction.
I hope somebody's writing all this down. So
what's the possibility? It's on tape. It's here for forever.
So that when the election happens and none of this takes place,
right.
You
can all write in and say Justin was wrong all the way around.
That's right. Yeah, they didn't get any of them right.
But right now,
I'm going to remind you that I never said there was 100% chance at any of this.
Right. But it's more than 40% chance that Trump will go off on his own because he won't get the Republican nomination, and it'll be Biden. Okay, what's your percentage that it will be none of the people we talked about running?
None of them
won't be Biden. Won't be Biden. Won't
none
be
of them
Trump.
will run, or none of them will get the nomination.
That who are that none of these people will be a candidate. That won't be Biden, Newsom, DeSantis, Trump, in any form or fashion, and it'll be.
Trump is a candidate.
4 or 5 people. Well, right now he can always withdraw his candidacy.
Right. Yeah.
By the time we get to 2024. What are the odds?
Basically, what I'm being asked is because like everybody else, yeah, I think that's a possibility.
So are
like
we wasting everybody's next half hour? Because you don't need to listen to this show because it's not going to be Biden and Trump.
But I think it all
according
just
to
comes
Justin,
down to
it's going to be two people that we haven't even heard of yet.
Yes. I think
that has the greatest?
I think that is the greatest of all these semi-unlikely situations, all these 40%. I think the thing that's more than 40% for sure is that it won't be any of these people.
So if I'm laying down my $10 this week,
I sure hope it's none of these people
in Vegas.
How's that?
I'm taking the field versus Biden, Trump, DeSantis, and Newsom.
The field.
I'll give Vegas those four people.
The field, baby.
And as long as it's none of those four people, I win my bet.
Of those four people right now, like if I have to say, I think that DeSantis has the best odds of those four.
See, I thought I would have guessed that you said Trump.
Yeah. Because
you made it sound like, well, Trump's running. Trump's going to be there no matter what.
Yeah. Well, I think he's going to be there. That didn't mean I think he's got a good chance.
Well, I didn't ask for winners. I just said who's going to run.
Well, right.
We're not even trying to predict a winner.
Oh, well.
I'm just trying to figure out who's going to run.
Yeah. I mean, I think.
Because I'm like you.
We've talked about it.
Biden, nor Trump, nor DeSantis, nor Newsom interests me.
Yeah.
And I don't necessarily have anybody. Obviously, other people interest me.
Right. All the people that interest me, nobody knows or wants.
But that's why they interest us, right?
Yeah.
It's because we really don't have enough information on them to dissect them. I mean, I could pick one of yours is probably John Kasich from Ohio. But if you get in there and,
you have enough information to dissect him.
And you know that, but most people don't. And, I don't like Kasich because he was not a supporter of education.
But I assume that you would take him over Trump or DeSantis.
Well, again, I would because what? He's been out of the limelight for the last 5 or 6 years. So his bad points aren't being looked at under a bright light.
Right.
Whereas
they're not as highlighted.
Those four people that we just talked about have been in the spotlight for multiple years now.
They're all relatively fresh.
And we can all see their bad sides.
Yes.
And my point is, what I'm trying to get to is all candidates have a bad side. The ones who aren't in the spotlight right now look better because we haven't looked at them closely enough yet. So, but I would probably, I think I would have to take some combination of those people we talked about rather than the field. I think the field's the better bet, but Biden, Trump, DeSantis.
The wild card is who is the field, right? I mean, that's the big.
And I'm not saying obviously all of them can't get there, but I think our nominees come from that group of 5, and I'm not excited for the next 2 years.
And I think that's why there's a good possibility that something exciting could happen. I think there's about a
42% chance?
Oh, I was going to say 41, but that's I like 42.
Well,
42 is an even number.
But what's my theory? My theory is always, well, the events haven't happened yet that are going to shape the presidential race.
Yeah.
And you go, so stay tuned and maybe I'll tell you what those events are and maybe I'll just make you wait. But my 52% chance is something will happen in the world or in the United States that will shake all of this out for us. And the thing is, it hasn't happened yet. And it's not on any page in your morning newspaper or your morning news feed on your phone. So can I talk to you millennials there? Because I know you don't even know what a newspaper is.
Well, that's Gen Z.
Gen Z.
That's right, Bradley, our producer. Yeah. Thanks, Bradley, for having trouble navigating the newspaper. I hope he's rolling his eyes or he's chuckling. He's doing the Bradley thing.
He's probably still sleeping. We're recording early.
Oh, yeah. He's doing none of those things right now. It's probably working out. That's probably what it is.
Could be. All right. Take care of that body, Bradley. Put that white t-shirt on.
Poor Bradley. He's like, man, what did I didn't do anything. I was just sitting here trying to edit this thing and you guys go. Yeah. Anyway, we'll be back here in a second.
Okay, I'm going to be officious. This is your segment to ask me questions.
Oh, okay.
I'm being high-handed here and meddlesome. I'm done asking questions. You can ask me questions.
I now have permission.
I will give you permission to ask me questions.
Whether or not you will answer the questions.
I'll answer them.
Oh, okay.
I got answers.
Right.
I don't know if I have coherent answers, but I have answers today.
I want to know what you think about this fresh take here. I think that it's very unlikely that we're going to get this, but I also think that there's as good a chance as there could ever be that we will get this. And that is, if there was ever a time for a new candidate to get 60% of the vote, or better, this is it.
What do you define as a new candidate?
Somebody that's not one of those people we mentioned.
Okay, but coming from the Democratic or Republican side.
Or, and this one is the one I'm excited to do a show about at some point. The rumblings are underway, and this isn't a little money anymore. I don't know where all the money's coming from because it's in a PAC, so that's always, questionable. But No Labels, the group that we've been talking about for years, they've got a PAC that they're overseeing, and the theory is that they're going to be ready if Biden and Trump are the people to bring a separate ticket to all 50 states ballots, that features a Republican and a Democrat who are both centrists together, and says, enough, we're done. We don't want this. So do I think that's likely? No. Do I think that it's more likely than it's been in any time in my life that could succeed? Yes, because I get the feeling that many Americans are feeling the way you and I are feeling, which is we're getting very tired of candidates that we feel like we're choosing between negatives. We're not choosing there's a positive. It's which of these, it's all about opposition, right? The other, and I mean, even Biden, who, to his credit, had some ideas about what we want to do. A lot of his ideas had to do with not doing the things that Trump was doing, not being like Trump, being the opposite of what Trump was. So, I mean, not to be overly critical, but a lot of the success of the platform had to do with, we're going to restore the soul of the nation because we lost our soul because we had this guy named Trump as president. And so it had a lot to do with get us back on track, get us doing. And so, yes, there are ideas there, but a lot of what we've been dealing with, and especially, you look at 2016, it had a lot to do with I'm not the other person. Instead of here's the vision, here's the idea, here's the direction, and I don't really care about these other people or what they say we're doing because that's not what I'm here to talk about.
I'm going to lean on history, okay? And as most people,
dang it,
will know, because
do we get our answer about Grover Cleveland now?
No.
Okay.
I'm going back to before the Civil War. When the Republican Party started, people don't maybe remember or never learned, the Republican Party started as a third-party candidate. And the reason they became the second party to the Democrats was because they finished second in the presidential race in the 1850s. And so it was like the Democrats, and everybody knew the Democrats were going to win. And then there were 2 or 3 parties out there who had put people forward, and the Republican candidate finished second. And so the Republicans then became the second political party. So part of me says that, yes, it's quite possible in our history that if you put together 2 centrists like that, they could make a strong finish where I then will deviate from history. I'm not sure that the people in power in either the Democratic or Republican Party will go away like the Whigs went away, because the Whigs were the party that dropped out and that were replaced by the Republicans. I don't see the Republicans or Democrats falling by the wayside with this challenge from a political party with 2 centrists. The political party having 2 centrists, one a Democrat, one a Republican, is not a new idea. That's my point. Historically, that's not a new idea.
It's a very old idea that
it's worked in the past. Okay. But we've ended up with 2 political parties. And what I don't see is that the Democrats and Republicans have been so entrenched in power that it's going to take 2 or 3 cycles to see one of them fall off. And so I don't think this new party will be successful for that reason. Could it be successful in your lifetime? And that by the time you're my age, 30 years from now, you'll be voting for two political parties, one of which is not a Democrat or a Republican? I think that has a better than a 50-50 chance. I think you and my daughters could be voting on a political party, on a political ticket that is neither Democrat or Republican.
Lance agrees with me that if there was a time, it's more likely now than it's been in recent elections, but that doesn't mean that it's likely to take place in the upcoming election in terms of it actually succeeding. It's going to take a concerted, decent showing and lose before it can happen and win.
But if they get enough votes to finish second,
right. Now you have something.
Then the future, I see that happening. They have to stick around long enough to finish second in a presidential race.
Yep.
And as soon as that new party finishes second,
well, now you're legitimate.
History shows us that then they will gain enough money and support to stick around and actually eventually elect a candidate.
Right.
That's what history tells us. That doesn't mean that we can't make new history, right?
Right.
Because what makes history is it happening for the first time. So if they come out of the gate and win, then all history references have to change.
Yes.
Because we will have had it happen once. Just like when Grover Cleveland ran again, that won't happen because we've never had a president lose and then win again. Well, guess what? We did, about 130 years ago. And so now we have to give it some credence because historically, it is possible. In a two-party system, it is possible for somebody to lose and come back and win again. It's only happened once, but it has happened. So the historical reference is, that could happen.
It certainly could. It's not likely, but that doesn't mean it's not possible.
And we've also had a sitting president who didn't lose, but walked away, Theodore Roosevelt, who anointed William Howard Taft back in 1908. And then Taft started to undo many of the things that Theodore Roosevelt had worked very hard. And Theodore Roosevelt said, I'm coming back and I'm going to run for the Republican nomination. And the Republican bigwigs who had their hooks into William Howard Taft, literally had their hooks into him, said, no, you're not. And they reelected, they renominated Taft. And Roosevelt had enough support that he started what he called his People's Party, or the Bull Moose Party is what it became known as historically. And the Bull Moose Party actually took 25% of the vote away. And Taft got 27% of the vote as the Republican. So together they got 52% of the vote. Woodrow Wilson, the Democrat, got 42% of the vote and became president because Roosevelt split the Republican vote with Taft, and had only one of them run, they probably would have defeated. Now, what's interesting is there was a fourth candidate named Eugene Debs, who was a communist, socialist, and he got 6% of the vote while he was in jail because he had been thrown in jail for sedition, but he got 6% of the vote. And if you add, now there are three of those four candidates that have, here's your history lesson.
Wait, this is the history? I thought we were already doing it. Okay.
Three of them could be labeled progressives. The three progressives were Wilson, Roosevelt, and Eugene Debs.
History lesson, folks.
And
we're stretching that brain.
If you put those three candidates together, they got 75% of the vote.
Mm-hmm.
So the point being, what did the American public want? They wanted a progressive.
Right. Yeah, it's like, well, he's not exactly the one I wanted. It's kind of it's sort of an experiment.
It can work, and
in
it's
like
happened.
Ranked choice voting.
It sort of is.
It's that concept of why did he end up being effective? Well, no, not a majority per se chose him, but they were very supportive of a majority of the ideas that he wanted and of the cause. So therefore, you had somebody that was effective because it's like, well, yeah, he wasn't my guy, but he has like 90% of what my guy was going to do, he's trying to do.
Well, No Labels is big on saying, well, 75% of Americans agree on this issue. They agree on this decision about this issue, right?
Right.
Well, 75% of the country wanted a progressive.
Yeah.
So the country continued to move forward,
Yep.
And get some of the things done that Wilson wanted, that Roosevelt wanted, and that, Eugene Debs wanted. So it's again, if that majority can vote, you can see some of the changes that you're talking about.
It's a highly speculative show today. We have to talk about it. We don't have to, but we do because everybody else is, and we want to give you guys some stuff to think about, tell you what history has told us. But for the last segment, which will be short, I have a fun question for Lance, which is a non-practical question, but we'll see what the historian is able to pull out as an answer to this one. Keep it here on The State of Us. We'll be right back. Biden or Trump in 2024? Is that what America needs? That's what we started out with. My just quick end answer to that is no, America does not need that. On the other hand, I would say maybe America does need that because maybe we haven't pushed quite far enough for us to understand that that's not what we should do. So maybe we have to do that and go through a terribly messy, terribly awful presidential election where these two run, there's contested conventions, and the whole thing is just, there's some words out there that you could choose to select this that I'm thinking of.
To make us vomit hard enough that we want to do something new.
Exactly. So it's kind of those catch. Do I think that we need that? No. Do I think that we may have to do that in order to decide if we have to do something else? Maybe. The question that I want to ask you though, Lance, is just for fun. You can choose, we talk about who's the ideal candidate, right? The only people you can choose from are people who have already served as president of the United States.
Oh.
So you get to choose.
I was going to pick me.
Oh, well.
But then you threw that caveat in there.
You don't qualify.
Okay, I don't qualify. All right.
Unless you were one in a previous life and reincarnated.
Not that I know of.
Okay.
All right.
So you get
I was not
president.
I was not Grover Cleveland, the only Democrat to win the presidency from the Civil War to Woodrow Wilson. All Republicans from Lincoln through FDR.
Yep.
The only Democrats were Grover Cleveland and Woodrow Wilson. So Grover Cleveland was the only Democrat from 1860 to 1912. Anyway, go ahead. I gave the answer.
Are you choosing Grover Cleveland?
No.
He's not the guy?
So I can go.
Who is the president that America needs, right? You can resurrect somebody, right? You can bring them back. Who's the guy? And I say guy because there haven't been any females. Who's the person that you bring back that America needs right now? Who's the one that gets us on track that we all can, not all, but that a majority of people can rally behind? And maybe those are different questions. Who do we need versus who we could rally behind? So if you want to answer it with the same person, if you think they're one and the same, that's fine. Or you
they're
can
not.
Give two answers.
I think the person we need.
Who's the person we need?
Is FDR.
Ooh.
Because he has the ability to try different things and keep doing things until they work.
Now, I didn't say you get to reincarnate their wife.
No, I know.
But it was a
no, because it was a.
But she deserves a lot of
most, and not all, but most presidents were team affairs.
Yeah.
Now, if you have to really dig deep in the older annals of history to find out the role that the woman played. But women played a major role in decisions that their husbands made. So it's always a team effect. And for FDR, he had a very strong female presence as a wife in his life to help him with things. He also had a very strong female presence with people that weren't his wives doing things for him as well. But that's another show.
He had a strong presence.
Yes, he did.
Just generally.
But the aspect of his presidency was he came in at a very horrible time. The stock market had crashed. People were out of work. The Great Depression had already started. The banking system was a mess. Hitler and Mussolini were coming to power in Europe. He had all these things to deal with, and he wasn't afraid to try something new and different. And his philosophy was, if it didn't work, then that's okay. Let's trash can it. Let's try something else until we find something that will improve the country. Now, he was, like all presidents, power hungry. And when Congress or the Supreme Court would get in his way, he did try to push his way through. But the balance of power, the system of checks and balances worked and stopped him. So does he have some drawbacks? Yes, they all do, because they're all human, right? But that's who I think we need. Who would we rally behind? And here's where I become the old history teacher. It's a George Washington kind of time. We need somebody who we would all look to.
So you think FDR is who we need?
I think FDR, because of his style of willing to fix a problem by trying different things until something works. Right. That's
his famous quote.
Yeah, that's what I think we need right now. Somebody who's willing to try all kinds of different things and only believe in it if it works, instead of saying, well, this is the right thing to do and keep pounding our heads with it because they think that's the only thing that will work. I mean, we need somebody who's willing to try all kinds of different things and stick with what's working. But to rally behind, I think we need a George Washington. We need somebody who's the only president to have 0 electors vote against him. He was picked because the country, people don't understand this. After the Revolutionary War, the United States was a mess. I mean, you had 35% of the country who had openly supported England during the war, who were still citizens and living in this country. And we had to figure out what to do with them. And England wasn't done with this. They just quit fighting because they had other fights to go. And on our borders, you had native people who didn't want us to be here, and you had the French and the Spanish. And who did we turn to in these tumultuous times? And who was able to lead us out of the forest and towards the light? It was George Washington, because he had this aura of, well, it's George Washington. And not that George Washington was perfect. He was far from perfect. He was probably not, dare I say it, one of our greatest presidents necessarily by what he got done. But
that's almost what he didn't do.
But yeah, and he was.
I mean, in fairness,
he established what our presidency is and what the president could do, what they couldn't do. He was great about surrounding himself with people who had different ideas. I mean, just right off the top, he puts Thomas Jefferson on one side and Alexander Hamilton on the other, who totally disagree. We have political parties who have different opinions because of Thomas Jefferson and Alexander Hamilton. And Washington was a strong enough leader. He put them in the same room and said, okay, what should I do about a national bank? And Jefferson goes, rah, 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 and gives this beautiful dissertation. And Hamilton said, well, yeah, Jefferson's a really smart guy, but he's wrong. He's stupid. We need to do this, this, and this. And attacked Jefferson, and Jefferson attacked back. And Washington sat there and listened to it and said, okay, thanks, guys. And then he made his own decision. So he was strong enough personality to bring both sides into the room, and yet was well respected by both sides, that they would stand by his decision and wouldn't fight him no matter what his decision was. And that's who I think we would rally around. A leader like that, who is
a leader.
What a notion. Someone who is not afraid to bring opposing viewpoints into the room, and very smart, and bring very smart people, maybe even people that are smarter than them, into the room on that issue, and listen to what they have to say, and then process it and say, okay, well, this, from what I heard from the smart people, this is the direction I think we should take. So those are my two. So gotcha. I answered your question. Okay.
Yep.
I think, I would like to see somebody like Franklin Roosevelt. Who do we need to lead us? Somebody like George Washington, who would be that strong leader.
The challenge, I think, in part, is not allowing the fame of the presidency, especially in modern times, to overcome the job of the presidency. And in fairness, were early presidents famous? Sure. But were they famous in the way that a president is today? No. And I think that's something I guess I'd leave people to chew on too, is Washington didn't have to contend with being seen on television on a regular basis, Or
read about what was on social media.
Right. And FDR, the dawn of, quote unquote, instant media was really just starting to take place, and he really established standards for it. So,
and it was the radio.
Right. Yeah. I mean, again, people didn't, they didn't see him that often. So I don't know. I guess I think that's another interesting point too, is one of the ways that we've chosen leaders has changed a lot. You used to have to rely pretty heavily on what the people locally that had a little more power than you had told you about what they knew about the people that were running. Because that was really, I mean, and you could read the newspapers, but a lot of them were highly biased, So, I mean, that was, it's not like you watched the candidates speak a lot. That was, unusual. Again, so different, and I think we forget that sometimes about our system today is not the system that we started with. And that's not necessarily all bad, but remembering that it was different, it was very different. It is different,
but what I described and what I hope people got was, don't get hung up on the names. I described a style.
Yes, exactly.
That style.
A philosophy.
That philosophy. That is what's needed, right?
And the point is that philosophy can work in any of these systems.
That would be my take on what you just said, because I don't disagree with what you said.
Yeah.
But that's where I think.
You're looking for a leadership philosophy. What president embodies that philosophy, less the person? Yep. They just happen to be the people that inhabited that style.
And right now, I don't know anybody like that out there.
Right.
That's the sad part. Nobody like that is getting any airtime.
Right. Or is running or is, Anyway, so why we do this show today, Lance? There was a reason, right?
We needed something to put up next.
Okay. Well, that is a reason. Yep.
But the real reason is because the company we work for, TrueChat, has a mission. And their mission is to educate people by providing honest, open, and respectful conversations. And as I started out, I tried to do that today. I was not trying to be too officious. And hopefully you enjoyed the show. It was a little lighthearted, but it was also very to the point of what we think and what direction we hope that our country takes. And hopefully you want the same things or you wouldn't be listening. But get your friends and family to listen and tell them about the show. And if they like it, tell them that they too can listen to it themselves and not have to rely on you to give them the recap. They can find us on Spotify, Overcast, Stitcher, Apple Podcasts, and everywhere podcasts are found.
The State of Us is available Tuesdays and Thursdays, first thing in the morning, released as a podcast. Those same episodes are heard on the weekends on AM and FM radio stations across the country and parts of Canada. Actually, Canada is also a country. I guess I should say across the United States and also Canada. Sorry.
To our Canadian friends.
Yes, I didn't mean, not that anybody would have taken it that way, but as I was saying it, I was like, that kind of implies that Canada's not a country, and they definitely are.
The great donut rule where you buy a dozen and get one free. That comes from Canada.
Thank you, Canada.
That's right.
It is cold, though.
That's why you get the extra donut.
In fairness, I've never been to Canada anytime except winter, which is like the wrong time to go. But then I'd also say it's always winter in Canada. So,
ooh, that's harsh.
Sorry. Yeah, we're really.
You're not really. Send your emails to Justin. That's podcast at the State of Us, because I am not blasted on Canadians. I love Canadians. So.
I do too. I like how they refer to us as the States. That's one of my favorite things.
You have donuts and hockey. I'm all for you.
What's not to like? We fight and we eat donuts.
And poutine.
Geez.
Great idea of putting gravy on fries. Oh, love it.
For the State of Us, I'm Justin T. Weller.
I'm Lance Jackson.
Special thanks to producer Bradley Butch. Thank you all, our audience, for tuning in. We'll see you next time. Be the change. Be sure to check out our website, thestateofus.org, for books, articles, and all the ways to tune in. thestateofus.org.